So picture this. It's 1903, right? And this young, super ambitious journalist actually manages to corner J.P. Morgan.
Right, arguably the most ruthless banker in American history. Not an easy guy to pin down.
Exactly. And the journalist is obviously fishing for this massive headline-grabbing quote. So he asks him, Mr. Morgan, what is the single greatest advantage of the ultra-wealthy?
It's such a direct question.
It really is. And Morgan doesn't give him some cliche about, hard work or waking up at 5 a.m. He doesn't even mention compound interest.
Which you would totally expect from a banker.
Right. Instead, he just stares at the guy for this long, super uncomfortable moment, and he says, I never answer that question in public. And then he just walks away.
It's just a phenomenal piece of history. And honestly, it perfectly encapsulates the entire philosophy we're unpacking in today's deep dive.
It really sets the stage because Morgan understood this fundamental law of physics when it comes to money and power.
Information shared is power surrendered.
Yes. Once it's out there, it's an irreversible transaction.
And that brings us right into our mission for this deep dive. Because what we're talking about today completely flies in the face of, well, basically all the loudest advice you hear in the modern era.
Oh, absolutely. We are diving into the hidden, highly strategic world of stealth wealth.
And we're basing this on a genuinely fascinating transcript we pulled from a channel called Fortress Investor.
Yeah, it's basically the intimate reflections of this 94-year-old veteran investor. I mean, this guy has quietly sat back and watched massive fortunes get built from scratch.
And he's watched them completely implode, too, over 7 decades.
Right. And his whole central thesis for surviving financially, it isn't some secret stock-picking formula.
No, not at all.
It's literally the practice of systematically shutting your mouth.
Which is so refreshing, honestly. The depth of this source material is just striking, because he frames financial security not as an accounting problem, but as this ecological and behavioral challenge.
Yeah, I love the way he breaks it down.
He outlines this lifelong structural framework, which he calls the 5 locks, designed to protect you from these invisible traps. And these traps, they aren't on Wall Street.
Right, they're at your neighborhood dinner party or in the office break room.
Exactly, or your own family living room. So our goal today is to translate this high-level philosophy into really actionable, everyday financial habits for you, the listener.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can build these defensive locks, we really have to understand the threat, right? And the source text starts with this incredibly vivid, almost atmospheric scene.
It really puts you in the room with him.
It does. So we have this 94-year-old narrator, and he's sitting at the exact same wooden desk in the exact same house on Farnham Street in Omaha that he's lived in since 1958.
It's just a very quiet, unassuming setup.
Right. It's raining outside. He's looking down at his desk, and he zeroes in on this permanent dent in the wood. A dent that was left by a heavy coffee cup he basically slammed down one morning in 1961.
And that physical dent is the catalyst for his entire worldview.
Yeah. He remembers that specific morning because he had just made this life-altering financial decision. But more importantly, he made the secondary decision to literally never tell a single human being about it.
Because he recognized that the most catastrophic financial damage we suffer over a lifetime, it's rarely from market crashes.
Or inflation. Right.
Right. The real damage is completely self-inflicted. It's done with words. As he puts it, your mouth might be the single most expensive financial instrument you ever operate.
That is such a wild concept, and I love the biological metaphor he uses to explain it. He steps away from finance and looks at nature.
The animal kingdom analogy.
Yes. He notes that the most dangerous animals in the forest make absolutely zero sound. I mean, the lion doesn't roar before it hunts.
The hawk doesn't announce its dive.
Exactly. And a river doesn't ask for permission before it spends 1,000 years carving through solid stone. They are unstoppable, literally because their intentions stay hidden until the last possible second.
And he actually traces this whole understanding back to this really specific childhood memory. He's 11 years old, sitting on a back porch in the dead of summer.
Oh, right. The paper route story.
Yeah. He had just spent an hour bragging to the neighbor kid about how he was going to aggressively expand his paper route, detailing exactly how much money he was going to make.
As kids do, you know.
Right. But his father was sitting nearby, just listening. And after the neighbor kid leaves, the father looks at him and delivers this line that becomes the absolute bedrock of the investor's philosophy.
Son, a vault doesn't have windows.
Exactly. A vault doesn't have windows.
Which, I mean, as an 11-year-old, you probably just nod and pretend you get it, right? But as an adult, he unpacked the actual mechanics of that.
A vault isn't just about keeping robbers out.
Right. It's designed to keep the assets totally isolated from the environment itself. Because the moment the world knows what's inside, everything changes. The friction starts.
He calls this information leakage. And this is the core invisible threat we're talking about today.
Okay, but I want to push back on this a little, just as devil's advocate.
Sure.
Isn't this just kind of financial paranoia? I mean, look at modern culture. We celebrate building in public. People post their milestones on social media all the time. It builds community, doesn't it?
It's a fair question, and it feels counterintuitive to our modern instincts. But if we look at it through the lens of thermodynamics,
Oh, getting scientific.
just a little. In thermodynamics, when energy transfers, some is always lost as heat due to friction. The narrator is arguing that the same law applies to your personal wealth.
So the information itself creates friction.
Yes, the moment you introduce your financial reality into the public domain,
Yeah.
you introduce atmospheric friction. The asset you're trying to protect in this vault isn't just the money.
It's your autonomy.
Exactly. It's the ease with which you move through your daily life without people constantly calculating your worth.
That actually makes perfect sense when you think about daily life. Think about the last time you, the listener, had a real financial win. Let's say you finally paid off that really annoying high-interest credit card.
Or you just got a modest raise at work.
Right. The immediate, biological urge is to tell someone. You want to text the group chat. You want to post a subtle little update online. It literally burns a hole in your pocket.
Because we're social primates. We survived by signaling our value to the tribe, but our environment has evolved way faster than our biology.
We aren't in a tribe of 50 people anymore.
No, we're exposed to the infinite, calculating gaze of the entire internet.
So what's the actionable step here? How do you actually apply this? We're going to call this the 24-hour silence period.
I like that.
When you get a financial win, big or small,
Yeah.
treat that information like it's highly radioactive. You enforce a mandatory 24-hour hold. You don't text your partner right away. You don't tell your parents.
And you definitely don't post it online.
Definitely not. You force yourself to just sit with that achievement entirely alone for one full day. You're basically training your muscle of discretion.
And the utility of that delay is massive. It allows that initial intoxicating spike of dopamine to metabolize.
So you don't do something stupid on a high.
Right. It gives your prefrontal cortex space to ask, does sharing this actually serve my long-term goals? Or am I just trading my privacy for a 3-second burst of validation?
It's a huge trade-off. And when we look at how this leakage happens, the most fatal mistakes almost always involve sharing exact numbers.
Oh, absolutely. Exact numbers are the sharpest edges in finance.
Yeah, it's one thing to say, hey, work is going well. It's a totally different, super dangerous game to reveal the exact state of your balance sheet. And the source material calls this the first lock on the vault, the number lock.
Because the moment you attach a numerical value, you aren't just telling a story anymore. You're giving the world an audited financial statement.
And the narrator backs this up with this crazy look at the lottery system. Here's where it gets really interesting. He brings up this sociological study of 400 major lottery winners in the U.S.
Right, over a 5-year period.
Yeah. And the cultural narrative we always hear is that lottery winners go broke because they're just financially illiterate, right? They buy mansions, fleets of cars, bad investments.
Because that's what we want to believe. It comforts us to think, well, if I won, I would be smarter. I'd budget.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We all think we'd be the smart ones. But the study showed a significantly darker reality. The winners who ended up completely bankrupt and totally estranged from their families, they weren't necessarily the ones buying sports cars.
What's fascinating here is the common denominator. The most tragic cases were the ones who publicly announced the exact amount they won.
They let the number out.
Yes, because the narrator points out, the moment a specific number goes public, it stops being trivia. It instantly becomes a target.
A target. Because everyone's environment aggressively reorients around that specific digit. Suddenly, that cousin you haven't talked to in a decade calls with a medical emergency.
Or a former coworker has a can't-miss startup idea. The friction becomes literally suffocating. And the investor dives into the evolutionary biology of this, which is just brilliant. The people asking for money aren't necessarily acting out of cartoonish greed.
No.
No, they're responding to ancient programming. For 300,000 years, humans lived in small hunter-gatherer tribes. Survival literally dependent on strictly equal distribution of resources.
Right, if one guy hoards all the mammoth meat, the rest of the tribe starves.
Exactly. So humans evolved this hypersensitive radar to detect and punish any unequal accumulation of wealth.
Which totally explains the crab bucket effect the text mentions.
The crab bucket is the perfect analogy.
If you put one crab in a bucket, it'll climb out easily. But if you put a dozen crabs in that same bucket, none of them escape.
Because the instant one reaches for the rim.
The others instinctively grab its legs and pull it right back down into the pile.
And the crucial takeaway is that the crabs aren't acting out of malice or jealousy. They don't have the cognitive capacity for that. It's pure instinct.
So when you tell your family how much you make, you're triggering that ancient instinct.
Yes. You think you're sharing joy, but you're actually triggering a biological response that predates currency itself. The brain is hardwired to rebalance unfair distributions.
Wow. And this biological leakage doesn't just mess up your family dynamic, it bleeds into literally every transaction you make.
This is where he brings in the economics of price discrimination.
Yes. The example he gives is so frustratingly relatable. Say you just sold a local business for, I don't know, $3 million, and it gets printed in the local business journal.
Right.
A month later, your roof leaks. You call a contractor. Now, that exact same contractor just charged your neighbor $8,000 for a standard roof repair last week.
But he drives to your house, recognizes your name from the article,
Knows about the $3 million.
and quotes you $18,000 for the exact same job.
And the 94-year-old makes this profound point. The contractor isn't technically a villain here. He's not really cheating you.
He's just doing what a free market does.
Hmm.
He is pricing your information based on what the market can bear.
He is pricing your information. That phrase is so wild. The cost of your roof is the materials, the labor, plus this massive tax on your lack of discretion.
And today, this isn't just about local gossips. We live in the era of algorithmic price discrimination.
Oh, right. Data brokers scraping your zip code, your job title.
Exactly. The more data you leak, the more the algorithms extract from you online.
So to counter this, the investor lives in the exact same modest house he bought in 1958.
He drives an average car. People at the grocery store probably think he's a retired middle school teacher on a fixed pension.
And that's not an accident. That's a highly sophisticated defensive strategy. The economic power of being underestimated is huge.
So how do you, the listener, apply the number lock every day? It's about fiercely protecting the equality of your relationships by deliberately appearing ordinary.
Right. When your friends assume you all make roughly the same median income, you interact as equals. You go to dinner, the bill comes, you just split it 5 ways. No weird vibes.
You skip the crazy expensive bottle of wine, you make a joke about inflation being brutal.
And everyone nods. You're preserving that shared reality. But the action step is, never let an exact number break that foundation. If you get a massive bonus and tell your friends the dollar amount, the dynamic permanently breaks.
Because now, every choice you make is subject to a silent audit.
Yeah. If you decline an invite to a pricey destination wedding, they don't think, oh, they're budgeting. They think they have the money. They're actively choosing not to spend it on me.
Resentment is inevitable. You lose your right to say no without becoming the villain.
So the habit is absolute numerical silence. Never reveal your exact salary, your savings, or your debt to anyone except your accountant or attorney. When someone asks how your business is doing, you just use the ultimate deflector. Oh, just keeping the lights on.
Maintain the camouflage of the ordinary.
Yeah.
It's essential.
Okay, so that secures what you currently have. But what about protecting what you want to achieve? That brings us to the second lock, the silent move.
This one is much harder psychologically.
It really is, because it forces us to suppress our hope for the future. The investor sets up the scenario that I know everyone listening has felt. It's 2 a.m., you're staring at the ceiling, and boom, you get a brilliant idea.
A new business, a career pivot, a plan to pay off your mortgage.
Right. The adrenaline is pumping. The vision is so clear. So you wake up the next morning and do what feels totally natural. You call your best friend and tell them everything.
And under the standard social contract, your friend is highly supportive.
Oh.
They validate you. They say it's brilliant. You're so talented. It's going to change your life.
You get this massive warm wave of validation. But then, and the text is so precise about this, you hang up the phone, you sit down at your laptop to actually do the hard work, and the urgency is completely gone.
The fire is lukewarm.
It really is. The drive just mysteriously evaporates. Why does talking about it destroy the motivation to do it?
It comes down to the neurobiology of the mesolimbic reward pathway.
Right, the dopamine system.
Exactly. Your brain generates motivation through dopamine. It's the chemical of pursuit, the fuel that drives you. But your brain has a major flaw. It literally cannot distinguish between the social validation of talking about a goal and the actual physical completion of the goal.
This totally lines up with Andrew Huberman's stuff on dopamine. When your friend praises your ambition, your brain registers that as a successful completion.
Yes, you trigger a massive artificial dopamine spike. You experience the reward of the finish line while you're still at the starting line.
And because dopamine operates on a baseline, the spike is followed by a crash.
Right. By broadcasting the ambition, you burn the vital fuel you needed to survive the really hard, unglamorous months of actually building the thing. You spent your hunger on a 10-minute ego boost.
But wait, I have to push back on this because this totally contradicts the entire modern productivity industry.
How so?
We're constantly told we need public accountability. Build in public on X or LinkedIn. Announce your goals so the terror of public failure forces you to follow through, like a pressure cooker. Doesn't the system need a release valve?
It's a common argument, but the 94-year-old investor argues that the internal pressure is the engine. If you vent it through conversation, the engine stalls.
Oh, wow.
He dismisses external accountability as a crutch for people with no internal conviction. He uses a much better analogy. He says a new plan is like a seedling breaking the soil in early February.
A seedling in February, so it's incredibly fragile.
Exactly.
Right.
It cannot survive the open field. It needs time in the dark greenhouse to develop a root system. If you expose it too early, even well-meaning friends can crush it with casual skepticism or logistical questions you haven't solved yet.
That makes total sense. And beyond the dopamine stuff, the text points out a really brutal external danger to talking about your moves, especially at work. You're basically arming your competitors.
Human beings are competitive by nature. It's not malicious, it's just resource allocation.
Right. The example he gives is chilling. You tell a friendly coworker in the break room, in strict confidence, that you're gunning for the new regional manager spot.
You think you're just sharing aspirations.
But the reality is, that coworker is a rational actor in a hierarchy. They might want that job, or their buddy in marketing might want it. By speaking, you literally handed your strategic timeline to someone who benefits from disrupting it.
You voluntarily surrendered the element of surprise. In any negotiation or advancement, acting before the environment can prepare a countermeasure is highly valuable.
So the actionable habit here is strict. Adopt this mantra. Do not tell people what you're going to do. Show them what you have done.
Operate strictly in the present tense of completion.
Yes. You want to launch a side hustle? Don't talk about it. Don't post a coming soon graphic on Instagram to get fake hype. Don't tell your family at Thanksgiving you're finally getting out of debt.
Delay the communication until the outcome is a tangible reality.
Absolutely. Don't breathe a word until the LLC is registered, the inventory is bought, and the website is actually processing credit cards. Let undeniable results be your only language, because then the momentum is entirely yours.
There's no time for competitors to block you and nothing left for skeptics to discourage. It's already real.
Exactly. Which brings us right into the third lock, the edge vault. Let's say you've stayed quiet, you've put in the work, and you've found a winning strategy. You have an edge.
Which is incredibly valuable.
But the modern creator economy instinct is that the split second you find an edge, you have to instantly package it and teach it to the internet.
And the source material explains perfectly why teaching your edge structurally destroys it, relying on the efficient market hypothesis.
Oh, the economic law that says all available info is already priced into the market. So if you find an advantage, it only exists because it's completely unknown.
Right. There's a classic joke economists tell. Two economists are walking, and one says, "Look, a $20 bill on the sidewalk." The other doesn't even look down and says, "It can't be a $20 bill. If it were, someone would have already picked it up."
That's perfect. The math says that once an advantage is public, competition floods in until the excess return is literally zero.
The advantage evaporates in the light, and the text points to the Coca-Cola recipe as the ultimate physical manifestation of this.
The actual formula is sitting in a vault in Atlanta. And only 2 executives know it at a time, and they can't even fly on the same plane.
People think that's just marketing theater. But the investor recognizes it as a profound understanding of enterprise value. That recipe is their moat. It's worth more than all their factories combined.
And he has this great quote, "A moat shared is no longer a moat. It is a bridge."
A moat shared is a bridge. It's brilliant.
It is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's wild how often the creator economy ignores this. You see it on TikTok constantly. Someone grinds for years, finds a super profitable micro niche like a loophole in digital flipping, and it's making them real money.
And what do? They try to convert their operational alpha into social beta.
They sell a $99 PDF masterclass to 50,000 desperate people, and then 6 months later, they post a sad video saying the algorithm changed and their business model dried up.
When in reality, they actively destroyed their own moat.
Hmm.
They manufacture their own hyper-competition.
Exactly. And the 94-year-old just skewers this. He says, if the gold mine was still full of gold, they would be quietly digging. They're only selling you maps because the mine is empty.
It's a devastating critique, but entirely accurate.
So what does this all mean for the listener? How do you protect your personal edge in daily life?
Think about it like a coffee shop.
Yes, the coffee shop analogy is perfect. You find this hidden gem of a cafe. Flawless Wi-Fi, cheap coffee, dead quiet. It's your sanctuary.
The asset you possess is the quiet utility.
Right. But if you post a highly aesthetic TikTok about your secret spot and it goes viral, you absolutely cannot be mad when there's a line out the door the next morning. You literally traded the utility of the space for cheap social currency.
You invited the efficient market to correct the anomaly.
Exactly. So the actionable step is to aggressively lock away your personal edge. Maybe you built a crazy Excel macro that does a week's worth of financial modeling in 2 hours, making you look like a genius to your boss.
Or you have a wholesale supplier giving you incredible margins.
Whatever it is, do not teach it to your peers. Don't brag about the mechanics of your efficiency. If people ask how you're doing so well, what's the alibi the text gives?
You attribute your success entirely to blind luck.
Yes. You just shrug and say, honestly, I think I just got incredibly lucky with the timing. Let them debate your luck while you quietly compound your advantage in the dark.
This is a perfect transition to the fourth lock because we've covered protecting wealth from the outside world. But what about the people you're actually building the wealth for?
Oh, man. This is where the transcript shifts from economics to this really heavy emotional paradox, the inheritance wall.
And he introduces it through a very painful personal story about a commercial builder he knew in Omaha in 1967.
Yeah, the 1967 builder. It's such a sad story. This guy builds an absolute empire from nothing. He started with one beat-up truck and a borrowed tool belt, grinds for 4 decades.
And eventually he reaches his late 60s. His kids are grown adults.
And he does what every modern financial advisor says is the responsible thing to do. He sits his kids down at the kitchen table and he opens the books. He shows them the trust funds, the real estate deeds, the liquid assets.
His intention was entirely pure. He remembered his own struggles, and he wanted to give his kids ultimate psychological security.
Right. But within 2 years of that meeting, the eldest son just quietly quits his high-stress corporate career to, quote-unquote, consult, and the youngest child just stops finishing their graduate degree.
The urgency just vanished. They didn't become bad people, but a vital spark was extinguished.
Because the father miscalculated. He didn't give them security, he took away their hunger.
Exactly. The investor argues that the deepest engine of human effort is uncertainty. The existential belief that your outcome depends on your daily actions. If you work, you survive. If you don't, you suffer.
And the second you reveal a massive guaranteed inheritance, you rip that engine out of the chassis. The car stops moving.
The safety net becomes a hammock.
Okay, but I have to stop you because I'm going to fight you on this.
I expected you might.
Because this feels so cruel. Keeping your kids financially blindfolded. Modern wealth management is all about radical transparency. We're told to have family meetings about estate planning so the next generation is ready.
It definitely challenges modern parenting norms.
Like, if a parent has $10 million, are they supposed to just watch their 25-year-old kid panic over rent and eat ramen noodles just to artificially build character? Doesn't stewardship demand transparency?
Yeah. It's the hardest tension in wealth management. But the expert draws a crucial line here. There's a profound difference between teaching a child financial literacy, how compound interest works, how to budget, and literally handing them the gold medal on the second lap of the race.
Okay, so how do you balance that?
The investor offers this golden rule. Leave them enough so they feel they can do anything, but not so much they feel they need do nothing.
Wow. Enough to do anything, not so much to do nothing. That is a terrifyingly thin needle to thread.
It is, and he insists the only way to hold that tension is to keep the specific numbers completely sealed until the absolute end.
Because otherwise the family dynamic gets totally corrupted.
Right. The text points out that knowing the money is there reorganizes the family around the capital.
Yeah.
A Thanksgiving dinner stops being a family gathering and becomes a theater for demonstrating loyalty.
Oh, man.
Every act of kindness, who drives dad to the doctor, who hosts the holidays, suddenly has this corrosive undertone of securing favor in the will.
The narrator even mentions watching siblings wage psychological warfare against each other, not speaking for decades, over a will that hasn't even been executed yet. The war started while the parents were sitting right there in the living room.
Entirely because the wall of silence was breached.
So his unyielding directive is, do not let them count the money while you are still breathing.
Which means the actionable habit is strict enforcement of the inheritance wall. Keep your estate documents and future gifts totally sealed.
Teach them how to fish. Buy them the best fishing rod, but never, ever open the freezer and show them the lifetime supply of fish you already caught for them. Because as the text says, the struggle is where character is built, and character is the only inheritance the tax man cannot touch.
That leads us right into the fifth lock, which shifts the focus completely inward.
The invisible deed. This one is about protecting your own soul, basically, from the world's cheap validation.
Specifically regarding how we handle generosity and philanthropy.
Because modern social media has completely perverted charity. It's turned into performance art. The investor talks about watching people donate $10 to a cause and then spending 40 minutes crafting the perfect post about it.
Tagging the organizations, using the right hashtags, and he's clear that they aren't necessarily bad people. The charity still gets the money.
But they are making a psychological trade.
Exactly. This raises an important question about the inner scorecard versus the outer scorecard, a concept heavily influenced by Warren Buffett's philosophy.
Right. So the outer scorecard is what the world thinks of you. Your reputation, your likes, your job title. But the inner scorecard is what you, in the absolute privacy of your own mind, know is actually true about your integrity.
And people living exclusively by the outer scorecard are, as he says, exhausting to know.
Exhausting. Because their cup is never full. Every good deed requires an audience. Every struggle has to be announced to be appreciated.
The cost of that trade is that the moment you demand applause for your kindness, you've essentially sold it. You traded a permanent piece of your character for depreciating social validation.
And it gets darker. When you live by the outer scorecard, you start broadcasting your financial struggles, hoping for sympathy. But the investor warns, the world rewards vulnerability with leverage, not kindness.
That is a harsh, pragmatic truth. By broadcasting desperation, you're bleeding in shark-infested waters. Employers, competitors, they will use that leverage against you.
So the fifth lock is about building what he calls spiritual equity. It's equity that can't be taxed, barred against, or lost in a lawsuit.
It's the purest form of wealth.
And the actionable habit to build it is so simple, but agonizingly hard today. This week, do one genuinely good financial deed. Pay for a stranger's coffee. Forgive a small debt a friend owes you. Make a quiet donation.
And the lock is, you tell absolutely no one.
Tell no one, not your spouse, not your business partner, and definitely not the internet. Deny yourself the cheap dopamine of praise. Let the quiet satisfaction be your only reward.
It proves you don't need the world's permission to know you have value.
So to quickly recap this massive framework, we have the number lock, hiding your exact figures to prevent price discrimination. The silent move, starving your ego of dopamine by keeping your goals hidden.
The edge vault, protecting your advantage by blaming luck instead of selling maps.
The inheritance wall, shielding your kids from unearned certainty. And the invisible deed, building spiritual equity through silent generosity.
Tying it all back to the lion from the beginning, the lion doesn't roar before it hunts, not out of fear, but because silence is the natural state of a creature that has built something worth protecting. The quiet ones don't need the room to confirm their success.
Which brings us to the 94-year-old's final realization, sitting in the rain on Farnham Street. He says, the vault is not what keeps the world out. The vault is what keeps you in.
It defines your boundaries, independent of the crowd.
And that is my final provocative thought for you to mull over. If you completely sealed your financial life away from the eyes and opinions of everyone else, who would you actually become? What would you do with your money if literally no one else was looking? Think about it. Keep the vault sealed.